All right, let's dive in. There's this one question that's been hanging over our heads for decades, and honestly, right now it feels more real than ever.
Yep, you know the one. Are the robots taking our jobs? It's a question that feels, well, it feels personal, right? But it's also turned into this huge economic puzzle.
And get this, for more than 40 years, economists have basically been on the case, like detectives trying to crack it. So today, we're going to follow the breadcrumbs, see how their thinking on this has totally changed over time.
Because, and this is the cool part, what they first thought was the answer, it wasn't even close. It turns out the real story is way more complicated and honestly, a lot more fascinating than you'd expect.
Okay, so let's rewind. It all kicked off with this really simple and pretty optimistic idea called the education race.
So this theory basically says to picture a race. On one side, you've got technology, and it's always creating a need for more skilled people. On the other side, you have our schools and universities racing to produce those skilled people. So if technology is winning the race, the pay gap between skilled and unskilled folks gets bigger. But if education catches up, the gap shrinks. It's a really neat idea, and for a while, it seemed to explain everything perfectly.
And the numbers backed it up. For decades, this model just worked. It totally explained why the wage gap between college grads and high school grads shrank when more people went to college in the 70s, and why it shot back up when enrollment flattened out in the 80s. So, case closed, right? Well, not so fast.
Because then, in the 80s, a new clue popped up that just didn't fit. The actual take-home pay for men without a college degree, when you account for inflation, it didn't just stall, it actually started to go down. And it just kept on dropping. For decades.
And that just raised a huge, glaring question. If technology is supposed to be making all of us more productive, making the whole economy bigger, why were so many people's wages actually shrinking? The whole education race idea assumed tech was a rising tide that lifted all boats, just some higher than others. But the evidence was clear. Some boats were actually sinking. The detectives needed to go back to the drawing board.
And this new investigation led them to another clue and a brand new theory, the hollowing of the middle.
So this theory, they called it task polarization, got a lot more specific. It said, look, computers aren't just helping out the high-skilled folks. What they're really good at is replacing routine work. You know, the kind of stuff you can write a manual for, data entry, assembly lines, that sort of thing. But at the same time, tech became this amazing tool for creative or managerial work, and it didn't really affect manual jobs like cleaning or serving food.
And what happened? You got this polarization in the job market. You saw job growth at the very top, the high-skill, high-pay jobs, and at the very bottom, in low-wage service jobs. But the middle? Those stable, middle-class jobs that were the backbone of the economy, they started to vanish. It was getting hollowed out. And that finally explained why so many people felt like they were getting squeezed.
But wait, the story's not over. The mystery wasn't totally solved yet. Because here's the thing about technology. It doesn't just destroy jobs. It's also this incredible engine for creating brand new ones.
And that brings us to the next big idea, another kind of race. This time it's automation versus something called reinstatement. The thinking here is super important. While tech is always automating old tasks, it's also creating totally new things for people to do. So the real question becomes, which one is happening faster, the destruction or the creation?
And when we say new work, we're not just talking about jobs like coding robots. I mean, just check out some of these job titles that have been added to the official US Census over the years. Yeah, wind turbine tech, okay, that makes sense. But hypnotherapist, a sommelier, a wine expert, a drama therapist? It's kind of wild. Our economy is just constantly inventing new ways for people to be useful.
Okay, here's a number for you. 60%. Just let that sink in. 60%. What do you think that could possibly be? That's the percentage of jobs in 2018 that were in fields that literally did not exist back in 1940. Over half. It just goes to show you, the world of work isn't some fixed pie where if a robot takes a slice, there's less for us. No, the pie is constantly getting bigger and changing shape in ways we could never predict.
But, of course, just when it felt like we were starting to understand this whole thing, along comes a technology that could change all the rules. I'm talking about AI.
See, all the technology before now was really good at jobs we could write down a set of instructions for. But AI is a different beast entirely.
It doesn't need instructions. It learns from examples. It can figure out the rules for things that we humans do intuitively without even thinking. And that's a huge deal. It means it's not just about those routine, middle-of-the-road jobs anymore. AI is starting to be able to handle creative, professional tasks, the kinds of jobs we always thought were safe.
So, where does that leave us? Well, it means the lines are getting really blurry. The speed of change could kick into overdrive. And for the first time in this whole 40-year investigation, the experts are basically admitting we're in an era of vast uncertainty. We just have no idea what's coming next, more so than ever before.
And you know what? That uncertainty brings us to the final and maybe the most critical part of this whole story. It's that the future isn't just something that happens to us. It's something we build.
The main economist we've been following, David Otter, he puts it perfectly. He says we should stop asking what AI is going to do and start asking what we want it to do, right? How do we guide this powerful new thing to work with us, to help solve the world's huge problems, and to make life better for everyone?
So let's go back to the beginning. Are the robots taking our jobs? After following this 40-year detective story, I think we've learned that's just the wrong question to ask. The real puzzle isn't trying to predict the future. It's deciding what kind of future we're going to build with these amazing tools. The story isn't over, and the next chapter, well, that's up to us to write.